Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am so excited to be doing a demo, review, try on, and comparisons of the brand new Hourglass palettes for holiday 2024. I am so happy that my shipping actually worked. I did pay for the overnight shipping, and kudos to Hourglass for getting this to me because the shipping was immaculate. I just got these, I'm ready to go. So I'm gonna be trying on all three of these today. I'm gonna give you my first impression, some swatches, let you know what I think about this release, and I will do some comparisons with some previous palettes. So if you're excited about this release, give this video a thumbs up. Of course, I will link these down below. If you're new here, I hope you stick around and subscribe, and let's go ahead and jump into checking out the brand new holiday 2024 Hourglass palettes. Okay, so I've got my hair pulled back. I'm so excited to try these out, but I do want to go over swatches and look at the palettes close up, tell you about the claims, where you can get them, and all of the things before we jump into the demo. So there are 3 new palettes this year from Hourglass. This is probably the most anticipated launch from Hourglass every single year. The holiday packaging is just absolutely stunning, and they do work with an artist to have this custom artwork. I believe they did use the same artist as last year, and last year's palettes were absolutely stunning. So these will run you $90 a piece. They are pricey, but Hourglass is a luxury brand, and you get this beautiful packaging along with 6 powders in each palette. Now these powders are so special because they have a really beautiful glow to them without having glitter or enhancing your texture too much. They just have this beautiful ethereal sort of glow on the skin. This year, all 3 palettes have 5 new shades and then 1 repeat, and the repeat shades are all a finishing powder. So 5 brand new colors in each palette, which I'm extremely excited about because I just love new. I don't feel like we need repeats, and I want something special and unique. So the fact that these are 15 brand new shades altogether, I am so excited to try them. Now these palettes are available now on the Hourglass website. I went ahead and picked up all 3, so I did purchase these myself. But just like last year, I'm super excited that they are allowing you to make your custom palette. So you can buy these already curated palettes that have the design with the colors inside, but you can also customize them. So if you wanted the lotus flower packaging, but you wanted the colors from the Evil Eye palette, you can do that. So I will have a link down below as well. So if you want to customize, you can, or you can just buy them as is. So I will have these linked down below, and then of course the customized option as well. They do also have a sort of re-promote, which is their Barney's collaboration, and it actually has the same shades as the Elephant palette, which was absolutely stunning. So I'm also gonna link that down below in case you wanna check it out. And all of these are limited edition. So it's kind of one of those things, if you want them, you gotta hop on it because sometimes they sell out pretty quickly. So let's talk about the packaging. So we have 3 different designs. We have the Evil Eye, and then we also have the Lotus Flower, I think is so pretty. And then we also have the dragon. The artwork is absolutely stunning on these. I think that just gets people super excited because they do have beautiful powders, but the artwork just makes these really special. So we do have the dragon palette, which is the lightest of the 3 palettes. So this is what the box packaging looks like. It's super beautiful. And then inside you have the same sort of artwork on the outside of the palette. I have not even opened these yet. I literally was waiting for UPS to get here, so I have not even looked in, and I'm excited to see these. So this is what the outer packaging looks like. It's so pretty. And this is fresh. You know what? I'm not an ASMR girly, so I totally flopped that, but look at this packaging. It is so beautiful. And then on the back, you have the shades listed. And then on the inside, you have the powders. How beautiful is that peachy shade? All of these shades are brand new shades, except for this top one, which is that finishing powder. So I wanna go ahead and swatch these and zoom in so you can see, and then we're gonna look at the other 2 palettes. Here are the swatches of the Dragon palette. So on top you have the finishing powder, which is the only repeat. Then you have the blush in Peach Fusion. Underneath that, you have another finishing powder in Divine Light. Then you have a blush called Mauve Haze, a soft bronze bronzer, and then on the bottom, you have a highlighter, Sunlit Strobe Light. Moving on to the next palette, I would say the middle tone palette is the Evil Eye palette. So this one has that evil eye artwork, and I know some people were kind of like, oh, I don't like this, and other people did. I'm sort of indifferent. It's probably my least favorite in terms of artwork. Either way, I think these are just really fun, and I love that it's just like a special packaging and something you can only get during the holidays. So the palette has the same artwork as the box, and I'm failing again at my, attempt to be a YouTuber. Will my camera focus? Here we go. So this is the palette's packaging, and it is that nice sturdy like tin metal sort of feel. And then opening up inside, oh wow. This one is beautiful. I mean, I'm a blush fanatic. I have to say that this palette is stunning in person. I just love a baby doll cheek. So these blushes are like screaming my name. Looks like you have a really nice cooler toned bronzer, and then you do have that one repeat finishing powder, which looks like a really nice tone. So let's go ahead and swatch these and see what they look like on the skin. Okay, so here are swatches of the Evil Eye palette. So you have the repeat finishing powder at the top. Then you have a highlighter that is the Rose Gold Strobe Light. So you have the blush called Pink Fusion. Then you have the blush Oasis Glow, which definitely could be multi-use on probably a lot of skin tones. And then you also have a blush in Vibrant Coral. And then on the bottom, you have the bronzer in Natural Bronze. Moving on to the last palette in the collection. This is the Lotus Flower palette. I think I love the artwork on this one the most, and then the dragon, and then the evil eye. I just think this is beautiful. Now this one is the richest and deepest of the three. So this is the outer packaging. Super beautiful. I just love this like floral design. And then inside again, you have the palette with the same packaging. I have this little sticker on there. So this is a close-up of the Lotus Flower palette. Okay, let's open it up and see. Okay, wow. I was expecting it to be, I don't know, maybe a little bit deeper overall. I feel like this blush definitely has some depth, and then these two highlighters I think would be beautiful on deeper complexions, but I just don't know if the bronzer has enough depth, and that's, I think, something that I kind of heard in my comments, and it's just unfortunate. So hopefully Hourglass takes note when people are like, hey, we need deeper shades, we need deeper bronzers. But let me go ahead and swatch these and show you close-ups of these colors. Okay, so here are the swatches from the Lotus Flower palette. So you have on the top Gilded Strobe Light, which is a highlighter, and I have to say it is intense. And then you have the blush in Desert Flush. Then you have the finishing powder in Eternal Light, and this is a repeat. Then you have a highlighter, again, very, very intense, in Radiant Rose Strobe Light. Then you have the blush in Red O, which is definitely really pigmented. It's a little bit more berry than I anticipated, but I think it's stunning. And then you have the bronzer in Bronze Heat. So now that we've gone over swatches and shown you close-ups of these shades, I did want to talk about comparisons, although I cannot find my Tiger palette like anywhere. So I don't know where it went, but I'm going to do my best to show you what I think is the most similar. So if I had to compare, I feel like this year's Dragon palette is reminding me the most of the Jellyfish palette, but it is more of a warmer tone overall, and the Jellyfish has more of that like cooler toned pink. So on the bottom here you have the Jellyfish palette, and then on the top you have the new Dragon palette. So both of these were the lightest colors that they offered for that holiday season. Now in terms of the Evil Eye palette, I immediately thought of the Elephant palette. I don't believe the Elephant palette was last year. I get it all like mixed up because, you know, all these years are kind of blurring together, but this is the Elephant palette, which is now repackaged into their Barney's collab. So you can actually pick up these colors right now, which I will link it down below if that's something you want to do. But I immediately thought that the Evil Eye palette really reminded me most of this Elephant version. So while there are differences in undertones, I do feel like these are similar. You're gonna get a similar vibe and they would work for a similar skin tone. So here on the bottom, you have the Elephant palette, which was from 2022, and then you have the Evil Eye palette on the top. So there's a couple differences in here, but overall I feel like this is a similar color story overall. And as far as the Lotus Flower palette goes, I cannot find my Tiger palette, but I feel like this is definitely leaning more berry. Like that blush shade right there is definitely like a rich red berry. The only thing I don't know about in here is that peach shade really going to show up on a deeper complexion? And then is the bronzer deep enough? So because I cannot find my Tiger palette, I can't compare that one for you guys, unfortunately, so I apologize. But I wanna try these on the face and see how everything works on my skin tone. I'm gonna try to just use every shade. I'm gonna remove my makeup and then we'll do it again, and then I'll remove my makeup and we'll do it again. So I'm gonna go ahead and zoom you guys in a little bit closer, and let's go ahead and start applying these. All right, so I've got you zoomed in. I have my base on. I am using the new Huda products. I just did a video yesterday, so I will have that link down below, but I am really enjoying them. So I have that base on. I did set my face with the Makeup by Mario powder, which I'm also testing and liking. So that's all I have on my complexion because I do want to use this for everything. So let's start off with the Dragon palette, which is the lightest one. So you have two finishing powders in here, which I really wish that they didn't do because I just feel like you don't need to and they look so similar. But I am gonna start out with the repeat, which is the Dream Light. And I'm just going to, did I hit the right one? I think it's actually this one down here, sorry. It's confusing. I'm just gonna take this on a fluffy brush and just sort of dust this on the skin. The whole point of these finishing powders is to give you that little subtle radiance, but they're not anything intense. Now, if you wanted to make them into a highlight, you could use a really dense brush, or you could also spray your brush with some Fix Plus, something like that. But they really are supposed to just give you that overall ethereal look. So let's go in with the other finishing powder, which is the new one called Divine Light. Divine Light looks like it's more creamy yellow undertoned. See if you can tell. Yeah, so you can see it's just sort of bringing the light to my skin, and it's very subtle. So it's not something that is supposed to be like blinding, but when I turn, you can see that it just kind of gives me that ethereal look. So I wanna move in next and let's use the bronzer. So the bronzer in here is Soft Bronze. Definitely is more of a cool tone. So I'm curious to see how this is gonna blend. So I'm gonna use a clean brush. This almost looks like it would be like a contour type of shade. Okay, nice color payoff, especially being that this is the lightest palette. Yeah, you can see like when I put that bronzer on, I feel like you can really start to see what the finishing powders do. So this bronzer definitely gives you almost like a chiseled sort of look. Not a ton of warmth, but sometimes people prefer that because I do feel like a lot of times bronzers go overboard with how warm they are. So it definitely has a glow to it, which is very standard for Hourglass products. It's not anything over the top, and I think that's a really beautiful shade. Next, I'm gonna dip into this mauve-y blush. This is a newer shade. Let's see what kind of color this gives. This shade almost reminds me of one of those new Kosas colors. I can't remember what it was called, but it's like that really pretty mauve shade. That's really pretty. I'm just kind of packing this on because I want you to see what you can do with these. Ooh, that's beautiful. So you can see like from the front, it's nothing crazy where I feel like, oh my gosh, I have like a stripe of highlight. That's why these powders are so loved, because they do have just this really beautiful, like soft lit kind of look to them. Ooh, that is beautiful. So this definitely has, I would say like a mauve, but it has a little bit of like a pink sort of reflect in it. When you turn your head, it's really, really pretty. Let's try out the highlighter in here. So their highlighters can be intense. This is the Sunlit Strobe Light, which is the one right up here. So I'm just gonna take a clean brush and dust this on the tops of my cheekbones. So that definitely amps up the glow. I'm gonna take another layer. Keep in mind that I do set my makeup so I don't have like an unset base for powders to stick to. This is on a fully set face. Okay, that's really, really pretty. I'm just going to take it there because if you want to, you can. Woo, that's beautiful. So this is what it looks like from the front. So I wanna go in on the other side and let's try the peach blush. So I'm just gonna go back in to the bronzer. I actually kind of like that this isn't overly warm. I went ahead and wiped my brush off and I wanna dip into that peach blush just because it looks so pretty. I will say this swatched a little bit subdued, so I would go in with a more densely packed brush. Yeah, so on the skin, it's definitely a sheer formula, which kind of bums me out a little bit. I'm just building this up. You need more layers of this than you would of the mauve. So you have the peach on this side, the mauve on this side. I'm going in even more with this peach because I'm waiting for it to really pop. And I don't know if that's gonna happen. Ooh, that's so pretty. So I'm gonna go in with the highlighter to finish off this side of my face. And then we can kind of zoom in and compare. Okay, so this is what the Dragon palette looks like applied on the skin. So I have to say the standouts for me in this palette have to be the mauve blush. It is just so beautiful. The bronzer is gorgeous. I love that it's not overly shimmery, and I love that it's more of a cool tone. I feel like that's kind of hard to find without it turning into like a straight contour. Really does a nice job at giving you sort of that shadowed look, but it's not too gray. And the highlighter in here is beautiful. Now, the one thing that I don't like about this, there's two things. I don't like that there's two finishing powders. I just don't feel like it's necessary. I think the finishing powders are beautiful, but I just don't think we needed two. And then I wish that this peach shade had more of a punch overall, because on the cheeks, it does sort of end up looking like just a soft peachy bronze. So it's beautiful, but you know, I love my punchy blushes. I feel like we have some winners in here that kind of surprised me. Like I'm just loving that beautiful like mauve-y blush. So this one definitely surprised me a little bit because I was hoping for more out of the peach blush and I really didn't think I was gonna like the mauve, but I do. Okay, so I went ahead and removed that product off of my cheeks and my forehead and then reapplied. So I wanna go in with the second palette. I'm actually gonna go in with this Lotus Flower because this is the deepest palette. It's not really meant for my skin tone, but I do wanna try these as much as I can. But let's start off with the finishing powder. So this is the repeat shade. It is a deeper shade for my skin tone. So I'm gonna use this as a bronzer. Definitely has some warmth to it. I need to be careful here so that I don't get too heavy-handed. So I'm just being very, very light-handed so that I don't go overboard. Definitely has a warm undertone to it. And even though it is a finishing powder, obviously you can use these however you want. And that's kind of the beauty of these palettes, is you can really use a finishing powder as a bronzer or a blush as a highlighter. Okay, so that's really pretty. If you are very careful, you can see that it does give me a little bit of that bronzed warmth. But because this is a finishing powder, it's definitely a little bit more sheer. I wanna go in with the actual bronzer on the other side. I'm just going to try. So I'm going to dip my brush in, but then I'm actually going to work it in on my palm because this is definitely richer. Okay, so this has more of, I would say, like that cool, almost leaning like a cool red undertone. So it gives you more of that like chiseled look versus this side is more warm. And I'm just being very cautious in building this up so I don't go overboard. So I wanna go in with blush, and I wanna use the peach blush, and let's see what kind of pigment this has. This looks a little bit light for the other shades in here, but it's really a pretty shade. As I throw my brush, all right, well, let's just grab another one. Okay, so we're just gonna try that again. So I'm gonna build this up because I want you to see what you can do with it. So it's a pretty subtle peachy shade. It's pretty, but I really am kind of thinking it's a little bit light for this palette. Let's go in with that red on top. Now this one looks intense. So I'm gonna try to keep it back towards the hairline. That definitely adds some punch. Let's go ahead and do that on the other side. I'm actually going to add a little bit of that peachy shade on this side. So I want to try out, I guess we could top, let's see. Let's try out this like coppery highlighter, almost as a topper. I feel like we got a lot going on here, but I'm gonna try to focus this higher up. Oh yeah, so you can see that gives you that sort of like copper glow. So for me, I would use this as a blush topper. The only thing is, like, then you start getting into the territory of it being too dark when you're facing forward. Let me try this highlighter. I just don't think it's gonna work for me, but we can, I mean, it looks really pretty, like, initially, but then when I look straight forward, it's too deep for me. I mean, it's really, really pretty, but definitely for a deeper complexion. If you have more of like a tan to deep skin tone, you can get use out of this. And I do feel like the highlighters are absolutely gorgeous if you have the skin tone that fits them. I also think this is a beautiful blush, but if you are in my kind of wheelhouse, it can be a little scary leaning, I don't want to say like bruised, but it does have that like berry undertone where I feel like you have to be very careful with it. And I also don't know, this bronzer, I just don't know if it's deep enough, but I also feel like the tone of it, I don't know, it's just a little bit less warm than I would prefer. But I do think this is really nice and this is really nice. So again, this isn't really made for me, and you can make these work if you wanted to use them, you know, on your eyes or just really as multi-use powders. And let's go ahead and move on to the palette I'm most excited about, which is that Evil Eye palette. Okay, so I went ahead and removed all of the powder and my foundation and then reapplied. And I wanna go in with the final palette, which is the Evil Eye. I feel like this is going to be my favorite. So I'm gonna start off, let's do the finishing powder in here, which is that Repeat shade. And I just wanna use this on the high points of my cheeks. Again, this is very, very subtle, but it just gives you a little bit of that luminosity. So I'm just gonna keep it as so. And then I'm gonna go in with the bronzer in here. So this definitely looks a little bit more cool toned. So let's see what kind of depth we can get here. Yeah, this definitely has a cooler undertone. So I'm just building this up. Sort of gives you that like chiseled shadow look from the front. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this on both sides of the face because there isn't another bronzer in here. I have to say this bronzer built up beautifully. I feel like it's cool toned, but it still has just enough warmth to kind of give you that like sculpted look without being too gray. So I'm trying to figure out where to go next because this is actually supposed to be a blush. So I think I'm gonna start there. This looks pretty light and a little bit more shimmery than the other blushes. So I'm just applying that. Yeah, it gives a little something, but I don't know if I love that. Like when you swatch it, it almost looks like a finishing powder with a little bit more glow. That I don't know if I would use much. Let's try, there's two different blushes in here, well, two more blushes. So let's go for the bottom one, which looks really pretty. It's Vibrant Coral. Kind of matches the top I'm wearing. So I'm just gonna punch this up. Yeah, that's pretty. If you wanted more payoff, you could definitely use a more compact brush. So this is what that Vibrant Coral looks like. I am going to, on the other side, try out the Oasis, is that what it's called? Pink Fusion, sorry. You know, all these names are just like swirling in my head. So this one is one of those marbled sort of blushes, and actually, you know what? I'm using a Refer 04, and I think it picks up a lot more of the blush. So if you want, again, more of that like intense shade or intense pop of color, use a really small brush. So you can see facing forward, the Vibrant Coral has more of that like warmth, almost like that neon undertone, very similar again to like my top. Whereas this pink shade has a lot of that like mauve-y pink in there. I don't think they're crazy different on the skin. This one just has a little bit of that like neon punch. But I think they're both really pretty. I'm gonna try to build up like I need more of the coral back here. And then we do have a highlighter in here, which I don't know. I feel like that might, I just flipped you off, I'm so sorry. I feel like this might be a little too deep for my skin, but I wanna try it out very lightly. So I'm taking a clean brush and I'm just gonna build it very slowly. This is like a rose gold. I mean, it is really pretty. I'm just unsure if from The front, it's a little bit too deep for me. I mean, it definitely is really pretty, but again, like from the front, I feel like maybe it's too deep. I want to try this possibly on my inner corner. So I'm just picking up with a really small brush just to highlight my inner corners. Got a little crazy there, Babs, calm down. Okay, and to finish off, I think I'm gonna go back in to the finishing powder with a smaller brush just to kind of highlight and brighten a little bit. And I think that is all that I wanna do with this palette. Try to use every shade possible. So I am going to put my hair down and kind of go over my initial thoughts on each of these palettes and would I recommend them, would I not, my pros and my cons. So I will be back here in a second. All right, guys, so I am back with my final thoughts on the new Hourglass palettes for holiday. So I'm a little bit surprised. So let's start off with the Dragon palette. I didn't know if I was going to love this, but I have to say that the mauve blush in here really stole my heart. It just looks so beautiful on the skin, and I would have thought that it wouldn't have been a favorite of mine. I was really more excited for this peach shade, and the peach shade is just really, really subdued, so you definitely have to build it up. I have to say that the highlighter in this palette is absolutely gorgeous, like gorgeous. So this palette actually stands out to me because I can use every single shade in here. This does have a cooler toned bronzer, but I felt like it was really beautiful. The only thing in here, again, that I had talked about was I wish that there was only one finishing powder, and then I wish that this blush was a little bit more punchy, but I think this may be my favorite color story. Now, of course, I do have to go back and look at my footage because I don't have like a monitor, so I'm just looking in the viewfinder and that's all I can see. But in the mirror and in the viewfinder, so this one is a pleasant surprise. I'm okay with the fact that it has two finishing powders because they do really look beautiful on the skin. And I like the lighter one, I think, more so because it really does give you that like ethereal, brightened up look. So this is a standout for me. Now, in terms of the Lotus Flower, I think this may be the deepest palette that I've personally tried from Hourglass, which is a good thing, although we need more, right? So when I say it's too deep for me, I mean that this just is really kind of hard to control on my skin tone. I feel like this bronzer, not having any warmth to it, is just not the most flattering, again, on my skin tone. But I think if you have a deeper complexion, these two highlighters are gorgeous. Like, whoa, look how beautiful those are. So of course I could use them on my eyes. These definitely stand out to me. I actually really, really, really love this finishing powder as a bronzer. I think because it is a finishing powder, it is very sheer, so it's very forgiving. So I do love that. And this blush is beautiful, but I do think that it should have been a little bit deeper, being that it is in the deepest palette. So if you have a deeper complexion, I would love to know if you picked this up. Did it work for you? Any kind of feedback would be super helpful in the comments because of course I can only speak to how it looks on me, but this is not meant for my skin tone. So it really doesn't surprise me that this is the least wearable for me personally. But I do think that these two highlighters are chef's kiss, stunning. Like on a deeper complexion, they would be beautiful. And I do love this packaging, but of course you could customize your own. I just think this packaging is so cute. And in terms of my thoughts on the Evil Eye palette, I said before that this packaging wasn't my personal favorite, but the color story really spoke to me because I just love pink and coral and just punchy blushes. So my only complaints about this is I wish that this shade wasn't in here. It's supposed to be a blush, but but I just feel like it's sort of a, I don't know, like a finishing powder, but a little bit more illuminating. I just don't see myself using this. I would have loved to see a really, really intense highlight like the Dragon palette had. I think both of these blushes are really, really pretty. They do translate similar on the cheeks, but you definitely have that like neon undertone with this coral one and more of that like pinky undertone with the pink one. The bronzer in here is definitely more cool toned, but I think it's a good kind of change of pace because honestly, a lot of bronzers are just super, super warm toned. So it gives you that kind of shadowed look. And then the highlight in here, I wish it was a little bit lighter, but again, this would work for like medium skin tones, even like medium tan, I would say. So I feel like that's kind of the issue with these palettes is that it's probably unlikely that every single color in each palette is gonna work perfectly for every person, but it also is the beauty because you can use these really anywhere on the face. So again, on your eyes, you can use them as highlighter, powders, blush. Really, there's kind of all these possibilities. So I don't think that the end goal is to use every single shade as intended because I feel like they would have to come out with like a ton of different palettes. So I would say that this is my second favorite. Again, I can't tell because I really do love the blush, but I feel like I like the bronzer the most in the Dragon palette. So if I were to order these and I wasn't, you know, a YouTuber, I would probably get this color story in the flower packaging, and then I would order the Dragon palette. But that's just my personal preference and what I think looks good on me. But I think overall they're beautiful. I'm glad to see 15 new shades. That is huge, and I'm so glad that there wasn't a bunch of repeats because that does get just a little bit old, and we're paying a lot of money for these palettes. So I think we deserve something new and fresh every year. So I wanna know your thoughts down below. Did you pick these up? Are you picking them up? What do you think about each palette when I swatched them and applied them? I would love to hear your feedback in the comments. Of course, I will link these down below in my description box with any discount codes that I can find and all of the information if you want to pick these up. They do tend to sell out. So because they are limited edition, I would definitely hop on it if you want one. So all the information will be down below in the description box. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, I hope you stick around and subscribe. As always, thank you guys again so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.